How do you make a successful transition from being a doctoral student to being an assistant professor? Learn how in this video. Hi, everybody. I'm Leigh from teachingacademia.com, and I'm all about giving you the tools you need to navigate academia to make your best impact. Today, we're going to be talking with Dr. Rick Marlatt from New Mexico State University, and he's going to be sharing with us what you can do to make a successful transition from a doctoral student to an assistant professor. So let's go hear what he has to say. All right, welcome everybody. Today I am here with Dr. Rick Marlatt. Rick, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Leigh. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Rick is an assistant professor at New Mexico State University, and we're going to be talking today about some common problems that people tend to have when they make this transition from being a doctoral student into being an assistant professor. So we're going to highlight a few for you and give you some advice on what you can do so that when and if these things happen to you, you can overcome them and be successful. So Rick, what have you found have been some common difficulties for you in terms of making that transition, or what do you see people struggling with in making this transition?
Sure. Well, thanks again for having me. I'm thinking that a lot of people struggle, myself included, just with recalibrating your priorities from being a grad student to kind of establishing yourself in the faculty position in a way that like makes a name for yourself and helps to, again, establish yourself in the field and then also, in your position, but doing so in a way that is also not taking on too much and putting yourself, kind of stretching yourself too thin and across teaching loads or with service or just adapting to the new place and space of your position, in a way that's healthy, I guess. Way to say it. So
one of the things that we were talking about beforehand was this idea of you want people to like you. You want people, you want to contribute, you're excited to be there, you want to do stuff that's going to obviously support the university, support the students, support other faculty. And a trap that people fall into is they feel like they don't know where to say no, right? What do I say yes to? What do I say no to? So how do you think about that? Or how would you advise somebody to think about how they make these decisions?
Yeah, it's a definitely a learn on the go kind of thing. Because as a grad student, and even when you first start in your position, it's like you want to impress and you want to be someone that folks can look at as an expert and as a contributor. And, so it's very easy to say yes to any number of requests across the board. And so really, it helps to just kind of take a breath before you say yes, to acknowledge what it is that you're actually saying yes to. And you might not even know at the time, and usually you probably don't, because that information comes later. But I think it also goes back to seeking out and accepting really quality mentors that can help you navigate some of those contexts. I know for me, being in a new university and in a new state, I said yes to everything. And because you want, like you said, you want to be a team player. You want to, be the person that other grad students can go to, but at the end of the day, you have to realize, what you need to do and be able to find a balance between teaching, research, service, and everything else. So,
I like your idea of, somebody asks you to do something, take a breath. You don't need to say yes or no right away. You can just say like that's, even if you think, whoa, I don't want to do that, right? And even if you're the opposite, you're super excited, when I was an assistant professor, my response was, especially if I didn't understand what I was being asked, my response was always, that sounds really interesting. I'm going to think about that and get back to you. And that buys you some time, right? That's your breath. And then you can find, like, I had a mentor that I would go to and I would say, this person asked me to do this. What do you think? And sometimes she would say, oh yeah, that's fine. And other times she would say, absolutely not. And here's why. Yeah. So if you can find somebody like that you can bounce this stuff off on, I think that's really important. And I think what you want to do is find somebody that will also stand up for you.
Absolutely.
So after I got tenure, we had an assistant professor and people were just going to this guy. He actually had myself and somebody else. We had 2 mentors, right? And we found out that he was saying yes to like everything. And so we talked to him about like, don't do that. Like, come to us first and tell us what it is and let's talk about it. And we were sitting in a meeting and somebody walked in and pointed at him and said, hey, and we both, and both of us were in there, both of his mentors, and we both went, no. Like, we just both stood up and we were like, no, he can't do that. No. And
that is fantastic.
So you want somebody that is going to give you good advice but has your back, I think.
Absolutely. And then taking a breath is figurative, but also literal. Like, I do this thing, like I take notes sometimes, and if I need to take a breath, if I know I'm being asked to do something directly or indirectly, I'll like ask more information about it and take notes. But mostly I'm like thinking, okay, what is this? How much time is this going to take? What am I going to be asked to produce? What are the deliverables here? And that gives you like a little time, up a few seconds, to come up with a good response like that you provided. So
yeah, you process it a little bit. Yeah. Exactly. And I think too, it's people aren't trying to overload you on purpose. I think people are just excited. My experience, people are just excited to have you there. They're excited for what you bring. They're interested to hear your thoughts. And they don't, especially people with post-tenure, don't necessarily take the time to think about where you are situated against here's what I'm asking you to do, and I don't understand everything that you are already doing.
Right.
And then as an assistant professor, you don't always want to say no to that person, even though they're probably going to be fine with it. Maybe.
True. It's yeah, it just depends. But I think you're right. I think most of the time they are wanting to include you. And empower you to share your voice, to contribute. So it's all part of the new universe, definitely, that you inhabit now. So
yeah. So the other thing that I think is important to stress is this idea of when you say yes, and if you say yes too much, it doesn't matter. You can be an amazing citizen, but you need to keep in mind the university priorities, right? At the end of the day, what counts for tenure? Because if you overload yourself saying yes to all these committees, extra teaching assignments or whatever, if that doesn't get you tenure, even though you might have done that really well, at the end of the day, you're going to be asked to leave. So how do you, as an assistant professor, think about what you say yes to and what it means to get tenure where you're at?
Sure. Well, a really good example is when I arrived last fall, I was teaching a content area literacy course that is required for all secondary ed majors before they student teach. And so the class filled up right away, and I had almost like a dozen overload requests. And coming from the high school teaching world, I would teach classes with well over 30 students, So I was thinking, I want to accommodate students and kind of be flexible and be known as someone who's, willing to work, and that was a mistake, because like I had so many students, and I had to reduce course load for research purposes, and I was essentially teaching 2 courses with that one section, just because of the number of students. So I don't think it hurts to, make us a summary sheet of like your tenure and promotion guidelines, the recommendations offered to you by your department or your college that state, what's expected of you, and to keep that kind of at the forefront. because like you said, you can be flexible and you can be, a great person to work with, a great colleague, but, at the end of the day, it comes down to those, those procedures, those guidelines. And so again, it's a balance, but you do have to take care of yourself before you can take care of anyone else. So I don't know, I'm still learning, definitely, but that was an early lesson early on for sure. So
yeah, I think that's really good advice. Like you definitely want to be involved, but you have to take care of yourself because nobody else is going to look out for you, really. It's not that anybody's trying, nobody has ill will for you, but nobody's going to necessarily be looking out for your best interests, if that makes sense, I think.
it does.
So yeah, find a good mentor who's going to help you figure out how to put yourself first while also helping you figure out how you can, appropriately spend your time doing service and those things. And I think that'll help. It's a lot to transition. I mean, when you do that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I don't know, can I say a quick word about mentors?
Yeah.
So, obviously some good advice that probably nearly all graduate students receive is this idea that, it's important to seek out mentors, almost from day one. And I would agree with that. But at the same time, I think it's also a little bit important to have an open mind regarding mentors, and also to, be willing to accept, help, I guess, if you want to call it that, mentorship from maybe some new sources or some unexpected sources, whether that be someone, from another department or someone, clear across campus, or just someone who has been at the university for a while and can kind of have some insight for you regarding, institutional types of contexts. Obviously your first I was this way. My first target was folks who shared my research agenda or looked like they were working in similar kind of areas or fields that I was interested in. And those people are often great, but, mentorship can come from a variety of places and from a variety of people. So while you do want to, be purposeful about seeking out mentors, I think it's also important to realize that there are people that can support you, that you might not be thinking about at the time. And so just to be willing to accept that mentorship, from unseen sources, and also just to kind of have an open mind about the whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Rick, for taking the time to talk with us. So again, this is Dr. Rick Marlatt. He's at New Mexico State University. And any comments, questions, thoughts that you have about making that transition or how you can support someone who's making that transition, head down to the comments, leave those for us. We would love to be able to talk to you further and help you with that. So Rick, thank you once again.
Thank you.